Good morning, Kansas City. Thank you for tuning in to another virtual Restore KC public program. My name is Paul Gutierrez, Director of Visitor Experience and Public Programming for the Kansas City Museum. A quick update on the museum. Our staff and leadership are working really hard to open up Corinthian Hall, which is stage 1, as a new museum of Kansas City history and culture this fall. So please know that inside that beautiful mansion, we have custom casework coming in, graphics, artifacts are scheduled to come in. So we're looking for a fall reopening timeline. In the meantime, we'll continue with virtual programs like this. Also in the month of August, we have our last summer concert on the lawn on August 13th. We have one more pop-up yoga with True Love Yoga, the third Saturday in August. So I'll welcome you guys to that. Visit kansascitymuseum.org. That's kansascitymuseum.org to learn about the renovation, restoration, and reopening, and also what's coming up with public programs and events on the historic lawn. This morning, we will be talking about community journalism and what that is and how that differs from the general media that's out there on local television. I want to introduce Abby.
Good morning.
Hi, Abby. How are you?
Great.
Can you let the audience know who you are and who you work for, and then we'll introduce Mike.
Yeah, of course. I'm Abby Hoover, the managing editor of the Northeast News. I'm excited to give more insight into the essential services that we provide our community. And I say our community because I grew up in Kansas City, spent a few years in the Northeast, and have now chosen to call Indian Mound home. Day to day, I manage our interns. Right now we have 3. I help with our social media accounts, communicate with the public, and of course, report on anything and everything Northeast. So whether that's following Lycan's executive director into a tent camp to talk with the unhoused people there, to interviewing elected officials for our weekly podcast, no 2 days look alike, but they're all exciting.
All right, Abby, thank you. And this individual needs no introduction, but Mike?
Good morning, how are you?
Good. For those that might not know you, Mike, just give us a quick introduction of who you are and a little bit more about the Northeast News.
My name is Michael Bushnell. I'm the publisher of the city's Northeast News. It's a position that I've held for a little over 23 years. And I know it doesn't show, but it's a great honor and privilege to be entrusted, I guess, with the responsibility of telling people stories, telling them accurately, and bringing community news to the historic Northeast community that's relevant, that's important to day-to-day life here, and hopefully make our community a more vital neighborhood.
And how long has the Northeast newspaper been in publication?
The Northeast News began in 1932. And it was started in a basement of a house. I believe it was either on Quincy or on Chelsea, the 100 block of either South Quincy or South Chelsea. And it quickly grew, despite the fact that it was founded right after the start of the Great Depression. But it grew, and it soon spurred like offshoots. There was, during World War II, there was a publication called the Brighton Bugle. And it chronicled the lives of servicemen that were serving overseas during World War II. And we've continued to grow, and when we acquired the Northeast News in 1998, it had really been. It became more of an ad sheet, more of a shopper, a thrifty nickel type of paper, and with the vision of editor Norm Mason, we turned that around within 90 days, and ever since September of 1998, we've been an editorially driven community news source for the historic Northeast community. And through the course of the years, we've won a number of awards from the Missouri Press Association for not only our marketing efforts and our advertising design and layout, but also for our journalism. And so we're very, very proud of that. We've just got a great team put together, and I can't say enough about our team that we have right now. Everybody, for the most part, everybody does live in the community, and that really helps to bring that home in our news gathering and our news delivery.
Great, thanks, Mike. I'll let our audience know you have any questions or comments. Just drop in the little comment box below, and throughout the program or at the end, we'll regroup with any questions or answers from the audience. Also, please note that this is recorded, and thanks to One Kansas City Radio, it will be available on a podcast and also on our YouTube channel. For Abby and Mike, I guess the first question is, what is the difference between local television, radio, and community journalism?
I'll defer to Abby.
Well, I think the biggest difference is, from the very beginning, we're there. Most stories we write, they somehow get picked up by other local news organizations, which is great because we're there in the action every day. We see stuff in Facebook groups, people call us with tips. It's really, I'd say it makes our job easy to be right there in the neighborhood. I can be there in 5 minutes, spend all day sitting and talking to somebody, because those are our priorities, is getting the full story, getting the aftermath, and being involved from beginning to end to see things through.
I like the idea.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
No, I think for the Kansas City Museum, by telling the untold stories and how the community journalism can capture those stories and then are picked up by a larger radio, television. But go ahead, Mike.
Well, kind of to lend an example to that, just this week, we got a news tip on Tuesday that an iconic local bakery, Boulevard Pastries, would be closing in August. And so ran down there, talked to some of the staff, put together our news story, and they didn't really want it out right away, so held it for a couple of days, and then we put it up, and then it's just gone bananas on our website and on our Facebook page in terms of views, in terms of responses. And that's what, when the other media outlets see that, they come in and they'll pick up stories that we've done on a routine basis. And I think since we live here, we get to hear and live through all of the before, during, and after part of that news event. So we're going to be here following up after the fact, and we'll be here for a long time doing that kind of thing. And so that's really, it kind of brings that community journalism aspect home, from the standpoint of, while the other, and I use this analogy a lot, while the other news agencies, if there's an event, it's usually a bad event, they'll swoop in, stand on the street corner with the PIO for the fire department or for the police department or whoever. They'll get their news story, and then they pack up and leave. And a lot of times, either Abby or myself, we'll walk back to the office, or we'll go back home, and we live. So we're here 24/7, and we're embedded in the news that we cover. So I guess that's the big difference between those guys. We're not swooping in and covering something and then leaving, going on to the next story.
How much time or follow-up or re-follow-up, like, would you say it takes to cover the full story? Like, instead of, like, is it hours that you spend or weeks?
It really just depends on the story. But I think the thing that keeps us invested is, it affects us if it's happening in our neighborhood. We don't get to drive across the state line and go home and forget about it or whatever. But yeah, we want to know the resolution to these things too. And so we keep on it. We want to know how it ends, I guess.
And I love that because I also live in the historic Northeast, Pendleton Heights. So I love knowing what's going on in my neighborhood, and I sometimes walk or bike to the museum. So I love our neighborhood, and thanks to your newspaper, it keeps us informed of what's happening. Mike, Northeast News is involved in lots of partnerships and collaborations in the historic Northeast community. What are some of those partnerships, and how do they benefit our community?
One of the primary and probably the longer standing partnership that we have right now is with the Northeast Kansas City Chamber of Commerce and the Independence Avenue CID. And I say this proudly, that is a partnership that we've actually won marketing and advertising awards with through the Missouri Advertising Managers Association. And what we're trying to do, working with the CID and the Chamber, is telling their story through the lens of some of the immigrant and refugee-owned businesses along the Avenue corridor. So if you look into the center spread of our paper every week, you're going to see a different business advertised that's on Independence Avenue. And so that's something that we're trying to get that word out, that, hey, come on down here to this store, because this is why it's unique and a part of Independence Avenue's international marketplace. And one of the other partnerships that we have right now, as you know, is with the Kansas City Museum. And we're doing a series of short videos that was making our museum, and we're with various people that have been involved with the Kansas City Museum over the years. And we're just finishing up our series with Dr. Gene Chavez on Latino baseball. And so we'll move on to somebody else. And then we've got our podcast sponsored content series. Abby and I just sat down with former Parks Director Mark McHenry and architect Eric Bosch and talked about some of the partnerships that they had with the city and how they reached out in order to put the Kansas City Museum at the forefront, not only of getting that first round of bond funds, GO bond funds, right, but also working together on the design process in terms of moving us to where we are today with the Kansas City Museum. So I would say those are probably two of the more important ones. Abby might be able to lend some expertise in regards to some of those other partnerships as well.
Well, I was going to say, some of my favorite partnerships are the less obvious ones, and not necessarily with other organizations, but with the doers and makers in Northeast. Art Garden Kansas City meets every Sunday in Pendleton Heights, and we were there the first week when they only had 2 tables, and now they're up to 40 artists, I think, most of them local to Northeast. And so they've been a huge supporter of our mission over the past couple months, and we love seeing the community, like grassroots effort they're giving to artists in our community. And then, being able to be that kind of person that people call us for info. They use us like 411. They call us for everything. Oh, do you have this guy's phone number? Oh, do you know where that person lives? And being able to make those connections and help people help each other is a huge benefit to the job that I didn't expect.
No, I love that. And Mike, and I love that partnership with the museum, because for us, it just sheds light in what we're doing. It's been a long project, and here we are. We're about to reopen this fall. So I love the interviews and the podcast and those 1-minute clips of interviewing staff, what we're doing. So thank you for that continued support and partnership of the Kansas City Museum.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to sit down with some of those people, such as, former Councilwoman Deb Herman, who was talking a little bit about the museum. She was around for those bad years, back 2009, 2010, when the general consensus was, well, it's just an old thing. We're going to close. No, we don't say that C word here. And it's really been insightful to me. She's kind of a highlight. And then, of course, Dr. Gene Chavez. He is just an unbelievable source of Latino history. And I could sit down and talk to him all day. It's been fun for us as well. So thank you.
Of course. Abby, on social media, do you see a trend in what people like or are more engaged? Like, is there a trend, like what topics, or what do you see?
Oh my gosh. I think every journalist experiences this is we spend hours and hours on a story and then it gets like 10 or 15 likes, and we felt it was really important information. And then a semi truck hits the bridge on Independence Avenue. And we have 30,000, 40,000 likes, hundreds of shares. Definitely that kind of stuff where people can recognize their neighborhood. They can say, oh, I was there. I have a personal attachment to this. It goes far.
Mike, what do you think? Anything that you think is more engaging that you see, or?
Well, without a doubt, the bridge just blows everybody away from the standpoint of when somebody gets a tip, oh, there's something under the bridge. There's a truck under the bridge. And that's, for me, that's a get in your truck, go. We got to go now. And you get down there and you never know what you're going to see down there with the truck under the bridge. You really don't. And then if you do get a chance to talk to the driver, that's a whole nother, you never know what you're going to hear either. In terms of, well, are you the driver? Yes, I'm the company's safety director. Were you driving the truck? Yes. Oh, really? But I think, it's humorous. It's humorous from that side of it. But at the same time, bring everybody back to a story that we ran this week. And this was one of our interns, Corbin Smith. He's from Northwest Missouri State, and he's pursuing a career in sports journalism. And he pitched it. We didn't. He did the idea of a story covering the unrest in Cuba and the protests down on the plaza for the Cuban freedom fighters that are living in America. I use that term. They're pro-freedom in Cuba. And there's a Northeast hook to that story because a local pastor here of a church on St. John was held as a political prisoner in Cuba for 6 years because he dared to say the wrong thing about the government. And so he was very, very nervous about that story and approaching that topic. He wanted to do it justice. And so Abby sat down with him, I sat down with him, and we came together as a team, and we couldn't be prouder of the story that broke. He really did it justice, and it's been shared a lot on social media, and I'm just really proud of the fact that our team came together and put something out that's like that, and it's a piece that we can all be proud of. He's going to go places. I'll tell you that right now.
Speaking of interns, Abby, like, how do you recruit interns? So how do you pick and choose, or how does someone's interested in interning? How do they contact you all?
Yeah, so actually, I started at the Northeast News as an intern in 2017 from K-State. And so now I routinely reach out to K-State, but also to pretty much any college within driving distance, I would say, because we want a wide variety of people. We don't want people of the same mindset. We don't want people who have grown up with the same life experiences. We celebrate that diversity of thought and experience. And so this year we have one from K-State, one from KU, and one from Missouri Northwest, right? Yeah. Sorry, I've been out of Missouri for a while. But it's interesting because, one of them wants to be a political reporter. One appreciates the more magazine, long form style, and one wants to do sports. And then you throw them into Northeast and they're doing all of that and yet none of that. And really broadening their experiences throughout the summer. They finally are wrapping up their back to school issue, which is coming out August 4th. It's going to be super exciting. Lots of good info on the schools as the school year comes up quickly.
Right. And if everybody's watching and they want to intern, who do they contact, or who can they email?
Oh, yeah. They can email us at northeastnews@socket.net. We take anybody who has any college journalism experience, all the way up until recent graduates.
Mike, what's going on with the bridge? Any updates to report? Is it going to get expanded, or that bridge is infamous?
We did, and again, going back to, it is infamous. It's actually got its own Facebook page, the Independence Avenue Bridge. And we did a story on that bridge, and just because of the questions that people asked, I said, well, that can't be 12 feet, or it's that bridge it's going to come down. And if it gets hit so many times, and that's kind of my idea was, you drive a truck weighing 80,000 pounds going 40 miles an hour at anything over a period of time, and if it gets done repeatedly, something's got to give. But it was built in 1912. The local railroad company has charge of maintenance of it, which is why after I'll just call them a bridge strike. After every single strike, they have to send out an inspector. The city and MoDOT have to send out an inspector. It has to be cleared, and then life goes on. The truck gets pulled away, and it's kind of like a standoff right now with the railroad, the city, and MoDOT. The railroad is not going to pay to elevate the rail line. The city is not going to pay to dredge out and make the road deeper. And MoDOT, they say, I'm not sure I believe it, but they say they threw $30,000 or $40,000 at new signage that blinks, but that still hasn't solved the problem.
Yep.
But nobody really wants to invest any more money in it. So we've got a bridge that's 12 feet high, and I did measure it in the 3 different locations in each lane, side, middle, and the other side, and it's 12-1, 12-2, 12-1, 12-2, all the way across. So I think it's here to stay, or as long as it'll stand anyway.
Well, I did interview State Rep Ingrid Burnett a couple months ago, and she helped get the 24 highway designation removed from Independence Avenue. So that was a huge step in redirecting people, but it hasn't been 100% effective.
And when you interview those individuals, like what rationale, what reason, what excuse, what they didn't see, like what do they say when you interview them?
You get it all. You really do. I think the best one was I go down there, and they're wrenching. By the way, those wreckers, those big wreckers, $600 to $800 an hour is what it costs to get that truck down there and pull the truck out. It's not like you and I calling a tow truck, hey, can you take me to the brake shop? But the best one was a couple of years ago, and the guy was standing there, and he was a driver, and he was, I kid you not, standing there in a t-shirt, pajama bottoms, and fuzzy slipper. And I tried to go talk to him, and then he walked away, and then he got in his truck because they disconnected the truck and the trailer. And he gets in the truck and turns around, and he tries to come back under the bridge. So everybody runs over in front of the truck, the tow truck, and the police officers waving, don't stop, turn around and go back. So he backs up, and he goes and he parks, and he comes down, and he says, I was just following my GPS. It's like, what? Do you look through your windshield? Do you really look through your windshield?
Wow.
But that was one of the better ones. But you go down there, you cover something like that, you never know what you're going to get. You really don't. It's something else.
Mike, remind our audience, what are the boundaries of historic Northeast community?
Depends on who you ask. If for our purposes, for the purposes of this discussion today, we're essentially the Missouri River, Cliff Drive, and then south to 15th Street, which is Truman Road. And then essentially 435, the Blue River, over to the Paseo, and then down into Columbus Park. So that's, for the sake of conversation and our coverage, that's what we determined to be the Northeast.
And the number of actual print that you do, the number of newspapers you print.
I'm sorry, I just looked at the comment from one of our loyal readers in regards to Bunny the News Hound. I will address that. We'll address that shortly. And there's a great story with that comment too. We do we print roughly 10,000 copies every single week, and those go out between roughly Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday morning. And then we continue to break news on our digital platforms throughout the course of the week. And right now our Facebook followers number roughly high 19,000, almost 20,000. And our likes are a little bit under that, but we've got a great digital readership and a great print readership as well.
Abby, what's been some of your favorite stories you've covered?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I do want to mention with that last question though, is that we provide the news for free to the Northeast. Nobody pays a subscription. Nobody has to sign up in any way. Because, there shouldn't be a price put on information. So the easier we can make it to have an informed community is great. My favorite story since I've been back, I think, I interviewed Tony. He lives up on Quincy, and he has a garden that he grows in the backyard of all the houses on his street. He's from Italy, and he brings special seeds so he can plant them every year. And oh my gosh, this guy's story was so cool to listen to. But then you sit there and realize, there's probably 24 people in his neighborhood that just have the same story. They came here as an immigrant to try and build a better life. And here's their unique way of doing that. And it was something I didn't expect. But, I spent hours with him that afternoon going through his garden. He was picking me fresh vegetables. And now he brings me dinner sometimes. He'll drop off his fried eggplant to the office and say, "You guys take it. I can't eat it all."
Is his garden open to the public, or if someone wants to?
It is not, but he would definitely share.
Mike, I'm sure you have a.
He actually brought last week or week before, I can't recall which. I think it was week before last. We were all. I was up front doing something in the office, and in walks Tony. And it's not when Abby says he gives us eggplant, it's not like, oh, here's a dinner plate with 3 or 4 pieces of fried eggplant parmesan. Oh, no, it's one of those food service pans that's 15 inches long and 12 inches wide, and it's heaped up with, yes, Paul, I can see your eyes. It's heaped up with this eggplant parm that he's fried. He goes, "Here, you take this. Well, I can't eat it." What? Oh my God. So we all ate very, very well that week, thanks to Tony. And that's just the kind of guy that he is. And that's really one of those stories that none of the other media outlets are going to cover that. And it's that kind of thing that we can do, and we can do very well. And to know a neighborhood treasure like that, like Tony, is really, really cool. And it's really neat that he thinks of us, in the way that he does. I love it.
I'll have to meet Tony here soon.
I gave Anna some. Next time I'll give it to you, but I gave her some because I couldn't eat it all. So sorry.
Mike, I know you have lots of favorites, but top 1, 2 that stick out of favorite stories you've covered, published. There's some I like more than others. I think probably my 2 favorites are the 2 opinion pieces that I wrote that I won awards for here a couple years back in regards to the prosecutorial paradigm in Jackson County, and they really, I call it this way, they really got legs and went somewhere. And I thought this is a really relevant to our community and our community's safety. And it's those kind of things. I think on that side of the fence, that's fun. But I got to tell you this: whenever the air show comes to town and you get to do media rides, and Abby actually won an award for her story when she was interning with us.
we got to interview a guy that flew in a B-17. We got to go up in a B-17 too, which is always cool. So whenever you get to go up in an airplane like a B-17 or up with the Army Golden Knights, it's totally cool. But this guy came back for an honor flight. He lived in Overland Park, Kansas, and sadly has since passed. But he flew one mission. I think his plane's name was the New Jersey Mosquito. And he was shot down. He bailed out and he became a prisoner of war for the next 3 years during World War II. So really bringing that guy's story to life, and Abby did it very, very well. But the backside of that is, yeah, we all got to ride in an 80-year-old airplane, and we lived. It was great.
Mike, can you go back to David's comment or question? Or
when we first bought the Northeast News, Ed Ford was a Kansas City, Missouri city councilman, and during the fall festival, we set up a table and we display, hey, we're the new Northeast News. Look at us. And we advertised it as come meet Bunny the News. And Bunny the News Hound was for many, many years our opinion writer. And she was a little dog. She belonged to us, lived here with Chris and I. And that was the non-plume that I wrote all of my editorials under, still do to this day. And so for those of you who don't know who the dog is me a lot of times. But we had Bunny the News Hound there, and we had her up on a table. And if you go back and look at that picture on the front page of the Northeast News, Ed is actually having Bunny the News Hound, but it looks like he's throttling her. He's got his hands around his neck. He's trying to silence the news dog. So that was the running joke. And Ed, literally, whenever I would show up to cover something, Ed would say, what has that dog got to say about me this week? And we really saw it. I think we kind of hit a nerve with him on that because he never knew what was coming once the news dog started to write. So I think that was a lot of fun. And that's what David was talking about in his comment there.
Okay. Abby, are there some stories that you thought you missed or that you wish you had more time to cover?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always more that we can be doing, but, we have a very, very small staff, and, we can't all work 24 hours a day as much as we would like to. So yeah, there's plenty of things that we don't see first, and we're like, oh, those are right in our neighborhood. I wish I would have covered that event beforehand so people knew about it. Or I wish I had more time to sit here and talk to this person, but 4 hours of audio is going to be a very long story. So there's always more we can do. And we're excited to, kind of expand the way that we can cover those things. I think having 3 interns this year definitely helped. But yeah, yes, there's always more to do.
Mike, is there one that you had more time to cover or that sticks out to you?
I'm sorry, you kind of garbled. Go ahead.
Is there one that sticks out to you that you wish you had more time to cover? Or that you thought you was missed?
I think probably the ongoing we're this ongoing homeless and pallet house issue that really kind of fired up late last summer, last fall, into last winter. And it's, there's so many moving parts to that story, and to go out and talk with all of those different people, there's never going to be enough time to cover that story sufficiently or in its entirety. And there's so many different facets and different sides to it. That's probably been one of the most challenging stories that we've covered, at least in recent history. I think if there was more time, I would have rather going back. I'll go back 6 years, and very sad story that we had to cover was the fire at Independence and Prospect, where 2 firefighters lost their lives. And I was inside the perimeter that night. I saw those guys get pulled out, and I really wish that we could have. We went all out. I mean, we went totally embedded ourselves at the trial, and uh, put out as much as we possibly could about everything that we knew at every step along the way. And that's it. It still affects me to this day. But that's probably I wish we would have had more time to dedicate to those two guys. And that's probably why we go back every year and cover the trap shoot, the skeet shoot for the John Mesh Scholarship. Mm-hmm. It means a lot to them. It means a lot to the kids that scholarship helps, and it keeps his family's name alive. And Paul, as you know, the museum housed the memorial that was put together, the memorial stone that was put together for those guys for almost a year before it was put up at the fire site on the West Wallace Snyder supermarket. So that's one of those ones that it gets you every time you talk about it, like it is Hear Me Now. So take it away.
Remind us where that memorial is, Mike, and the address.
The old Snyder's is now Mercado Fresco Supermarket. It is at 2620 Independence Boulevard. So essentially the intersection of Independence and Prospect. And the memorial to the two firefighters is on the west wall of that building, right where they pulled John out, as a matter of fact. And Larry went out the front onto the avenue.
Yeah, it's as you drive down to the parking lot, right? I think I've seen it.
Yes.
In that mall. Yeah. Yep. Mike, the mantra of your newspaper is the voice of the historic Northeast community. What does that mean in actuality?
It means if you disagree with Bunny the News Hound on any issue, you go to the front of the line and you get a free spot in the paper the next week. It's not about what we think. It's not about what we write. We try to give voice to the voiceless. And seriously, I mean what I say when I say if you've got a beef with what the News Hound says, or if you think that we didn't cover a story properly, or there's a nuance that we missed, feel free to contact us. Send us a letter to the editor. And it's not about us. This is about our readers. This is about the residents of the historic Northeast community. And to be frank, this is their paper. It's not ours. I mean, we're the ones that put it together every week, but we're here for the community, and the community is here for us. So that's really it. We want to give those in the community a voice in city government or in the community. Let people know about what's going on, whether there was a cleanup this morning that we covered, various things that are going on in the community, whether it's a community movie night at the Colonnade or an Indian Mound at Budd Park, or what the Likens Neighborhood Association is doing in terms of bettering their community on a big basis. So that's really about, we just want to tell the stories of the residents in the historic Northeast community.
Abby?
I think absolutely. Northeast does not have a singular voice. There's so much diversity of thought and opinion and experience that we're not coming from just one perspective, and we never want to. We want to know why people are doing the things they're doing, and how, what creative ideas they're bringing to the table to solve different problems, and even the different problems they're experiencing, whether that's quality of life issues, problems with their neighbors, trying to get a new school started. There's so many things going on that once people know about them, they can really get off the ground.
And I love the word that you use, perspective, because for the museum, we're about telling the multiple perspectives of history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how does all that come together in one building to tell the history of Kansas City and its culture. So the multiple perspectives of history is what we're trying to show here in the fall as we reopen. Mike, someone asked about that blank page publication that you all did. Tell us more about what was the intent, or...
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
right there.
Okay.
There's my PowerPoint presentation.
How's all about that?
And I'll tie this. I'll tie this back to Shane Wilson's question over there in the comments. At the end of 2020, we were faced with the loss of a couple of different advertisers that really were mainstays in the paper. And when that happened, we made it as far as we could and up into March. At that point in time in March, we had not secured a second round of PPP funding from the federal government. We were told we weren't eligible because we didn't meet the loss of business criteria. You have to be down. There's a number of criteria, but the main one is your business has to be off at least 25%. And I guess, 22.5% didn't cut it in the federal government's eyes. So at that stage of the game, we were really faced with, look, guys, we got 60 days. If something doesn't happen within 60 days, we're done. It's over, kaput, finished. And we were spitballing in a staff meeting, and Abby and Brian, our art and creative director, were going back and forth. I can't take credit for that. They threw it back and forth, and we decided to made the decision to publish a blank front page for our March 24th, 2021 edition, to send a message, to send a specific message of what a community would look like without a community newspaper. What if there is no news? And three stories ran in that edition. Abby put together a piece on what it would be like without the Northeast News. I did an opinion piece on roughly the same kind of thing and supporting why community journalism is important. And then we ran another piece. I gotta look, I'm sorry, on, my piece was the Walmarting of community journalism. And then you decide the fate of the Northeast News. Those were the only three pieces that ran, and it resonated with readers, and it must have resonated with readers across, because when it was picked up, Channel 9 came out and did a story, and the Kansas City Star did a story. And once Channel 9 uploaded their feed to CNN, it was on. It was on like Donkey Kong. By the end of the day, we had over $800 in donations in our PayPal account. And by the end of the weekend, there was over $2,500 because the AP, the Associated Press, which is a national wire service, picked it up. And then it got picked up by a couple of papers up in Seattle and New York Times and the Huffington Post. And so we really got international coverage. And I was self-effacing humor. This little dirt kicker of a paper in historic Northeast Kansas City got picked up and viewed all over the world, to the extent that we were able to, a local bank learned of our plight through that coverage and was able to secure second round of PPP funding for us. And we still have people that we'll call them subscribers, set us up on a regular monthly donation. Most of them are $5 or $10 or $15 a month, which is a typical price for a weekly community paper. Mm-hmm. But we've got one person out there, and I don't know where she lives. I'm sure she lives maybe up in the northeast part of the country, but she signed us up for $200 a month, and it's recurring. And I kind of look at that every time it comes in, and I'm going, well, there's the light bill, or there's the water bill, or there's any one of a number of things that we can put it to that keeps our doors open. And I guess to speak to Shane's question in the comments, in addition to advertising, how can we support the North News? Subscribe. We've got a subscriber page. It's as easy as setting it up through PayPal on recurring donations. We also just launched a Patreon page, which is a video subscription service that we're offering news articles, say, for example, a day or so ahead of when we put them out on our regular digital platforms. So you can sign up for our Patreon service through subscription service, or just put us on a monthly donation for whatever you think community journalism is worth. And any amount, it doesn't make any difference. Any amount is really appreciated.
Abby, what's that site?
Yeah, so our PayPal donation link you can find at northeastnews.net, and it's right there in the top corner. The other one is patreon.com/northeastnewskc, patreon.com/northeastnewskc. And some of the fun things that I've done on there so far, we took a tour of Arts Asylum over in Paseo West. We took a walk down to the Carl DeCapo Fountain on Cliff Drive, which has gotten a lot of attention recently. And fun things like that, not necessarily need to know news, but a view of the neighborhood from our perspective.
Speaking of fun things, Abby and Mike, what are some of your favorite foods in Kansas City, or in particular in the historic Northeast?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've been working on my house late nights over there, and we have determined some of the best taco places in the world, I think. I mean, I've had tacos all over the country, down in Mexico, and really some of the best are on the Avenue. Trying different things, trying my Spanish out, which I need to improve on, but.
Mike?
I'll second what he says about the food trucks. I don't think you can get a better taco anywhere in Kansas City than on the Avenue anywhere. But also, you look at some of the African or Asian places. What's the place down there? It escapes me. Yasmin Cafe.
So good.
Independence and Paseo.
So good.
Oh my God. The sambusas are to die for. And then you come down the street and you go into, there's a little Middle Eastern bakery in the 3400 block of Independence that we've covered before. I think it's Huda Foods, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. But going in there and just getting a whole international sampler if you drive down Independence Avenue. But those would be the two. And then obviously we've got a real good, I was going to say Italian, but that's up north of the river. But we've got 3 great coffee shops. And in terms of Ilias, who was really the original, they were kind of the OG in terms of coffee shops and bistros in Northeast. But it's really good to see that kind of growth happen too. And PA Coffee and Split Log over in the Pendleton neighborhood. I told a local real estate agent who does live in Pendleton Heights, he's lived here 20 plus years. And there was a period of time when we would be talking and we would both agree that said, we're just one funky restaurant or one coffee shop away from this place breaking wide open. And we're there. It's happening. And it's really cool to see, and it's really cool to be a part of.
Definitely. And those coffee shops we're a huge part of during our coffee week every year. I think that's probably one of the most fun things to put together. We go talk about their processes, how they roast their beans, their specialty drinks and all that, but also the reason why they chose our neighborhood, because building a business in a community is such a big investment. And to watch those thrive is just awesome, especially for somebody with a caffeine addiction.
Right. Couple of questions before we end our show. Abby, what are your must-do things in Kansas City? Must-see, must-do.
Oh my gosh. So I just moved back to Kansas City about a year ago. And so I've kind of been living as a tourist in this COVID world. Exploring Northeast is something that I've been trying to pull my friends to come explore our neighborhood, saying, just wait until the museum's open, or let's take a walk on Cliff Drive. Oh, you've never been there? Let me show you. Oh my gosh. But now that Cliff Drive connects to all over Kansas City, you can get down to the riverfront. You can ride your bike almost anywhere you want. There's always great programs going on, like your guys' at the museum, but also, Art Garden every Sunday, the Sala de Arte, which just opened down at 9th and Van Brunt. If you're into just the art community, it's some really impressive stuff that's coming out of Northeast.
Mike?
I think sampling what Kansas City has to offer, really. And it's just so much. And as a lifer here, every time I'm always learning something new whenever I'm out running around. And it's just really cool to be a part of that and to see to your the museum coming back online, or watching, having lived in Northeast for 30 years and seeing, say, for example, the National World War I Museum when it was crumbling and almost falling into falling into the ground, and to see what's happened with that. I think some of those are really my go-tos, those two places. But the converse of that is, getting on my bike and head anywhere out of town or whatever. It's just, I just love living here. It's great.
And what bike do you ride, Mike?
The logo's on my shirt. It's a Harley. I know. Sorry.
Not a bicycle. It's a Harley.
No, it's a motorcycle. I have to go pick it up later today. But anyway, it's just riding around and seeing what everybody's doing and waving and saying hi. And and like Abby touched on this a little bit earlier, to go by PA Coffee on a Sunday afternoon and see that the arts garden, and it's really come up from nothing, and to see how popular that is. And it's happening right here. This is happening in Northeast. And if you'd have told somebody who lived here 30 years ago that there would be a community improvement district on Independence Avenue and it would improve tenfold from what it was then, or that we would have 3 coffee shops like this, or that that this would be an enclave for the arts and the music community, you're out of your mind. Don't bother me. But it's happening, and it's really cool to see all of the hard work that we've done. And I'm talking way back 90, 91, 92, when I was elected president of Scarrett. And, Abby's dad was here then. We worked closely together as in Scarrett Renaissance, but all of the neighborhood organizations at that time that worked to get us to where we are today. And some of those people are no longer with us. Josephine Carroll, Mary Theresa Carroll, Ruth Ann Harper. There's a name Paul's heard that Ruth Ann Harper name before, I'm sure. But it's, a lot. But it's really cool to see how far our community has come, and the esprit de corps, that people who believe in Northeast and believe in their communities working together to make it a better place. And that's really, to me, that's really, really cool.
Absolutely. And I think, with the addition of the museum opening again in the fall, you're really going to be able to make a day trip out of coming to Northeast. And it's only 5 or 10 minutes from downtown. I mean, obviously the East Bottoms, you have the Rieger down there, you have Knuckleheads. Come up to the museum, go get coffee, spend time in our beautiful parks. I mean, it's such an obvious destination for the city now with the addition of all these things.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think we will become a destination for the museum, and how people explore the historic Northeast as well. Last question to both of you. What are 2 or 3 takeaways of what is community journalism compared to the local television or radio? What are those 2 or 3 main points on what community journalism is?
Go ahead.
I think one of the main points is we're embedded in the community that we cover. And what that means is like kind of what we talked about before is, after those guys put together their, they put TV cameras away and grab up and they pack up all their stuff and they're on to the next, if it bleeds, it leads news story. We're going to be here doing that follow-up, and we're going to be doing the in-depth work on a lot of these stories, such as the work that Corbin put together for this week's Cuban freedom story. It's just a fantastic story, and we're going to continue to follow that because there's a Northeast hook there. And that's really it. I think that's the difference. These guys come in, then they leave, and we're here. So we're going to live it. We can tell you about everything that possibly led up to that event, whatever it is. And we're going to bring you the backstory and then what happens after that event. So I think that's the primary difference is we're here for the long haul, and hopefully our community will support that mission.
You know, thinking about hyper-local journalism, I've worked in a small town of 6,000 covering their news, and then coming to Northeast where it's kind of a small town within a big city. Where else in Kansas City can you get such dedicated news for such a small area? I mean, we've got the Martin City Telegraph, which is fantastic, but they're covering all of South KC, Martin City. It's a huge coverage area. To be here in Northeast where so much is happening in such a little space, it's fantastic. And kind of giving a voice to those stories that aren't typical news stories, I think is my favorite part, you know, kind of seeking out those fun details or those quirks of our neighborhood and expanding on those things because they've been in the back of somebody's mind saying, I wish I knew more about that. And then we get to provide that for them.
No, I love that. Like Tony, I want to meet Tony. I'll follow up with you on that.
There's a funny story about Tony. If there's a lady that lives up across the street from the museum, and she wanted, when we ran the story about Tony, she wanted to see if she could get some cuckoo seeds from Tony because she wanted to grow the cucuzza squash. Those are the long squashes that are grown in Italy, and he grows them down here. And so we talked to Tony, and Tony said, yeah, I'm going to Sicily here at this time, and I'll bring you back some seeds. 6 or 7 or 8 months passes, and usually, I forgot all about that. No, Tony comes to the door after he gets back from Italy and Sicily, and he's got 3 or 4 starter plates in those, those garden things that you buy at the nurseries. He's got 3 or 4 starter plants of cucuzza squash that are 3 and 4 inches high, and he goes, "These are for your friend." What? You remember? So we took him up to. She was just so tickled. She was just so tickled that number one, Tony remembered, and number two, that she now had these squashes, and that's the kind of follow up. Look here, we're going to do this, and look at the outcome of that, and we're all larger because of Tony. Thank you very much. But those are the ones that we really do get to cover. And that's kind of a follow-up backstory.
That's the sense of community that's in Northeast. And I don't know in many other places where you can find that. Mm-hmm. And this is the community that held up the Kansas City Museum for all these years and supported us through our hard times. It's just, we're lucky to have it.
One big family. I mean, let our audience know your website and all your social media handles.
Absolutely. We're northeastnews.net, and you can find us on Facebook as Kansas City's Northeast News and Twitter and Instagram as Northeast News KC.
Anything in closing, Mike or Abby?
I think we covered it all.
I just want to say thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to tell our story through Restore KC, and to continue to tell the story of historic Northeast as a whole. And I just really appreciate that. As I said earlier, it's an honor and a privilege to have that responsibility, and it is a huge responsibility. So it's not something that we take lightly. We have fun a lot of times. We have fun what we're doing. We've got a great team put together, and I really just say thank you very much.
Well, on behalf of the Kansas City Museum, thank you, Abby, and thank you, Mike, for giving us more information on community journalism and a little bit of a history of the historic Northeast area and on the Northeast newspaper. Thank you both so much. Again, my name is Paul Gutierrez, Director of Visitor Experience and Public Programming for the Kansas City Museum. If you missed this Restore KC program, thanks to One Kansas City Radio, it's available on a podcast, and it will always live on our Facebook page, which is at Kansas City Museum. Thank you, audience, for allowing us into your home this Saturday morning. Please stay hydrated and cool out there. Visit kansascitymuseum.org. That's kansascitymuseum.org to learn about what's coming up as we reopen the mansion this fall, virtual programs, and also in-person outdoor events. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend.